Everyone who has millions started from zero, from this to that, from nothing to everything. As a divine healer, let me show you the blueprint to heal your deepest wounds, step into your destiny, and become the happiest person you know. My name is Steph Mahony, and welcome to your $1 Million Life podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to your $1 Million Life podcast. My name is Steph Mahony, and today we're talking about breaking barriers by choosing collaboration over competition. With me today is an amazing guest. She is joining me from Toronto, and it's none other than Dr. Georgette Zinaty. She is the founder and CEO of Women Helping to Empower Women, an organization that is dedicated to advancing women's leadership and empowerment. She is also the chief of staff at Maya Corporation, a pioneering company at the cutting edge of scientific innovation. Dr. Zinaty holds a doctorate in business administration and shares her expertise as a professor at both Western University and the Rotman School of Business. Her remarkable achievements have been earning her numerous awards, including the CILAR Inspiring Innovator of the Year Award from the Coalition of Innovation Leaders Against Racism, the Heritage Hero Award in Toronto, and the Inspirational Leader Award. She is also a current nominee for the prestigious Women of Influence Award. Join us as we dive in to learn about her story rising to the top of living her $1 Million life and breaking through the barriers that hold us back, the energy of competition, and how to rise above and use this energy to propel collaboration, empowerment, and unity together. So thank you so much, Dr. Georgette. Welcome to your $1 Million Life podcast. It is such a pleasure to have you
Thank you for having me. It's great to see you.
Thank you. Thank you. And we met in just passing. And the moment I met you, I just loved you. I loved your energy. I loved your drive. And I loved the impact that you were making in this world. And in just a few moments, I just got how authentic you were. So I just wanted to start there by really congratulating you for doing so many amazing things and helping other women to get there too.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for all the work that you're doing. I love the fact that your podcast and the work that you do is focused on aligning people with a purpose, because I think when people thrive, it's when that alignment happens. So thank you for all the work that you're doing, Steph.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. So let's dive into your story. Tell us a little bit about who you are, how you got started, and where you're going.
Oh my gosh. Well, we don't have 3 hours, so I'll give you the Cold Stones version. Who am I? Well, I am an immigrant to Canada. We came from sort of a country where there's been a lot of war. Grew up in Oshawa. Decided early on I wanted to go to university and get an education because I felt that was an important. I think at some point I realized that was going to be the key to sort of being able to have some freedom, degrees of freedom in my own life and career, and be able to kind of be in the driver's seat. Because if you have an education, you can have a job. And if you have a job, you have income. And if you have income and you are able to make those decisions, you're not sort of under anybody else's discretion. Mm-hmm. So I did that. I went to university and then I got a job. I worked a number of years at the University of Toronto and just sort of moved up to very, very senior leadership roles. And while I was doing that, I, of course, I got married. I've got 3 kids, did a number of degrees while I was in school. And when I finished my doctorate, my funny little stories, my husband said, "Are we going to put this thing up $100,000 on the wall, or are you going to do something with it?" So it was really a time to kind of think about what I call the pivot and where do I want to go. And so I had decided to open up my own consultancy work and be able to do more related to women, and particularly women who are underrepresented. And so did that for a couple of years and then shifted careers again. What's interesting is when I think about kind of the thread that goes throughout. I think I've always been somebody who's, kind of spoken up a little bit, whether it was for inequity or the underdog or someone who I think was less represented. And I was a bit bold about it. I didn't really shy away from it. I still remember being early on in the university and, being on some committee and being asked to speak to the dean that everyone was afraid to speak to. And they sent me to the wolves, or so they thought. And I came back with an approval, and they were like, he said yes. And I went,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah, because he originally was, no, we can't do that. And I said, well, you're doing all of this, this, and this. Do you think we could find a happy medium to do that? And so we found a compromise. And I came out of that meeting and they're like, he didn't say no. And I
Oh,
was like, but I
it's
was in my
amazing.
20s, right? So I don't know whether also
Yes.
when you're young, you're kind of got no filter and no
You have
fear.
nothing to lose, right?
You had nothing to lose. And I was like, I'm new. I'm just thinking, I'm just telling what I think needs to happen. And so it worked out. And I think I realized that if you don't early on, you don't ask, you don't get, and that's probably impacted many ways in which I've lived my life.
It's amazing. So, you and I have had a lot of conversations about this, and I wanted to focus our time together about talking about what it takes to get to the top. So, as you know, I'm all about alignment, fulfilling our purpose, stepping into the fullness of our destiny. And within all of us lives this compass, and it only points north. It's to our North Star. And that's what we have charted to do in our experience in life here. And when we're in alignment to this, it's happiness, fulfillment, and it gives us a purpose of why we're actually here. But it's actually the hardest direction to follow because it requires us to step outside of our comfort zone. It requires us to live bigger rather than being safe and playing smaller. And what I've learned in this journey is that, you know, we celebrate women on Women's Day. And we have so much love for each other on this one beautiful day where we tell each other, go break those glass ceilings, go follow your North Star, go leave your mark in this world. But the problem is that when we actually do, when we take that step forward and actually do something bigger, then suddenly people stop clapping. Suddenly the energy changes and people start talking about you and you don't know why because you're like, but I'm doing something bigger. I'm trying to do something good in this world. But all of those people that were once clapping and telling you to go for it suddenly aren't. And for many reasons, because of this, that journey to the North Star gets stalled. And many people find themselves stuck. So instead of pointing north, they're pointing west because they're scared and they want to fit in and they want to be loved and accepted. So they continue to live in the cycle that they know, but they're not happy and fulfilled and they're not doing what they're supposed to do. Instead, they're blending in with everybody else. So, the reason why I love you so much is because I see myself as a smaller version of you. Like you're going for it, you're going after your dreams. And I know that you too have been in this place of this journey from this to that, from nothing to everything. And I wanted to see if you can share with us what that energy looked like, the energy of competition, and how you were able to break through it.
Well, what's interesting is, you talked about that cycle. And so, of course, I've lived it
Mhm.
multiple times. I think what was interesting for me, and when I was doing, certainly when I was doing my research, I realized that some of the barriers that I faced, I don't think I realized other women were facing. So these are women that have really made it to the very top echelons of organizations. So when I was interviewing, I did take a pause at one point when I was doing my research because I thought, my gosh, I thought it was just me that had experienced this and realized there were others. So, but during that journey, I think I also had decided a number of things. So I do a lot of self-reflection, like a lot of self-reflection. Like when someone says something, I think, is there truth to that? Do I need to be thinking about it? Was I really the way they said I was? Or do I need, was that coming from someplace else, that judgment? So there's so much in what you said. I just, if you want to like peel back, I want to peel back the onion. I don't like onions, so we can peel back something else, but you know what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
right? So the alignment to the North Star is so hard. It's so hard because most of us don't know. Like it takes time to figure out what your real purpose is. And so it's not like you're, 16 and you know what it is. Sometimes you do, which is rare, but you figure it out over time. Like you figure out where it is that you shine. What space is it that you shine? And I remember sort of where the sort of penny dropped for me many years ago as I was doing this work, I was doing this research, and I created a program at the university on women in leadership because it was sort of my research area. I hadn't finished my research, but it'd been something I'd been involved in. If I look back, there's a thread of that kind of stuff throughout my whole life. But I had created this program from scratch, built it, and all of the content and brought in the speakers. Anyway, by the very end, I had wanted these forms, like survey, and I had certain questions that I thought, I hope we got this right. And I remember getting the forms, and I was in the parking lot at University of Toronto Scarborough campus at 10 o'clock at night, and I opened the envelope and I'm reading the feedback. And it was like, doctors, Georgette changed my life. She made me realize I should have a seat at the table, that I should. And I remember just like tears coming down my face, and I'm thinking, and I got goosebumps, and I tell you, I get goosebumps. And I remember thinking, okay, this is where I need, this is my space. This is
Yeah.
my space. And it was like, you could give me $1 million, honestly. The feeling that I had, I mean, it was better than any money I could get. So I knew then that that's kind of where I needed to move. So when I sort of made the career shift, I knew that it was going to be in this kind of space where I could make a difference in people's lives, and I had the proof, right?
Yeah.
But also, I think what you're talking about is when your light is starting to really shine, some
Mhm.
people feel the shadow of that light, and that's a them
Mhm.
problem, not a you problem. So when we talk about collaboration over competition, I love when other women are shining. Do you know why? Because my hope that if you are true to what you are doing, you're authentic to what you're doing, that actually means you're going to open doors for other people. You're creating their trailblazing for the next person. Why would we not want that? We know what the data says. We're not going to we're not going to have equity. We're not going to have equality. We're not going to have all the inclusion stuff if we're not actually opening doors for each other. So the fact that your light is shining brighter than mine should not make me feel any less than. And if it does, I need to be asking myself, well, why is that? Why is Steph's
Mhm.
success making me feel a bit more diminished? It shouldn't.
Mhm.
It, in fact, should be propelling me to say, wow, I love what she's doing. What could I learn from that? Right?
Mhm.
Not steal, but learn,
Yeah,
right?
exactly,
Learn and say,
exactly.
what are some of the things she's putting into place and how can I be coached to do better if that's
Yeah,
really what you want to do? Now, not everyone's going to want to do that. I mean, and again, those are probably people that are not your friends, and that's
yeah,
okay. There's
yeah,
like, I tell my own kids, your circle of friends is no way that it's 50. You're lucky if you have 2, 3 really good friends your whole life. And
yeah.
then you've got the little rings, as I call it, and that's completely okay. But also that means you have to be comfortable in who you are, your own
Mhm.
purpose, the
Mhm.
life that you want. And if those people don't align, then they're maybe somewhere further on in that ring of
Yeah,
circles and friends, and that's okay. But you
yeah.
have to be comfortable doing this. So that's a little bit of self work that you have to do in yourself if you want
Mhm.
to get your North Star, if you want to live the life that you really want, if you want to live your $1 million life, right? Or millions,
Yes,
you have to be
exactly.
able to do that. Otherwise, it will not work because
Yeah.
you're going to feel the guilt and the weight of that isn't your weight to carry.
Exactly. And I think that when we can get that self-awareness that you're talking about, that I have something that only I can do in this world. And if we each see that all of our purposes are not better or worse, but they're just different. And when we can choose for just a passing moment to decide to just go for it all and to fulfill your life stream, your purpose, then it's like your inner light just activates. Everything just opens up and you become in flow with the universe and opportunities start opening and putting you into alignment. Sometimes the tower falls because the things that you were holding on to, the illusion of what you think is meant for you, will fall away. The friends that you don't need will fall away. But everything that you need to fulfill what you're activated to do is going to open up and push you into this place to feel like so fulfilled and happy. So we can see each other as, really one, that we're all working together. it's such a heightened perspective because I want to elevate you and I want to shine light on your success and help everybody, because when you are lit up, I'm lit up, like we're all together, you know?
100%. Of course. So I've talked often about what I call the power of one and the power of us. So if it's one person helping the next person, or you're supporting this one person that can open doors for everybody else, that's one person thinking, well, I don't think I can make a difference. But like your podcast, if someone's listening to it and thinking, yeah,
Yes.
I'm going to pursue my dream, and like if she's doing it, I think I can do it. And that person's life changes. Imagine the ripple effect on their family, on their community. That's what I'm talking about, the power of one, the power of us. And so I actually take that very seriously because I recognize the impact we can have on other people. And then you talked a little bit at the beginning about the positive energy. So I also think too that you attract what you put out. So
Hmm.
if you're in a space where you've got this energy and you're thinking about all the great things and all the things that you want to achieve, the people that get attracted to you and want to be with you love that because they're seeing
Hmm.
that, and that's the energy that they feed off. The other
Yeah.
people that fall off, it's because you're, again, they don't, that's not the space, and they're limited. And when you do like coaching and training, we talk about growth mindset and limited mindset. People with a growth mindset are love it, love it, love it. Go, yes, I'm willing to do
Yeah.
change. People with fixes,
Yeah.
like, why does she have to do that? Why can't you do that? That's where the judgment piece comes in. Whether it's a
Yeah.
judgment piece about your career, like, Steph, when is it going to be enough? Because I've heard that. Or
Yes.
or it's, whether it's questioning your motherhood. I've had people
Yes.
question my motherhood. Do you spend enough time
Yes.
with your partner? I'm like, do I
And
do I strike you as someone who's miserable at the moment? So it's like,
no, Dr. Georgette, like, let's pause there and talk about that because I think it's so important, especially as women and trying to break barriers. When we perceive a man to be successful and have it all together and working long hours, it's like he's this great provider, right? And he's providing for his family. He's doing so great. He's a breadwinner, and this is amazing. But if the story changes and it pivots, I mean, he could still be that great provider, but when a woman steps into that place, the frequency changes because our perception of what a woman should be and where her place is in this world is different. And I think that's maybe an ancestral thing, that like trauma that's coming out, but it quite, you become questioned and judged as a mother, as a provider, but it really comes down to as a mother. And that's the part that breaks my heart. Because why can't you be both? Why can't you be an example for your children to show a pathway of what hard work, determination, going for your dreams looks like? Right?
yeah, no, it's interesting because, we were talking a bit earlier about the story that you shared with me. And it was so, because of course I've had a similar version of the same story where women are judging, like, are you around
Yeah.
enough for your kids? Or do you think you're a good enough mom? And I sort of think, I remember having a conversation with, it was actually a man, and
Hmm.
he made some comment about my parenting. You're not really around, your husband's really raising all these kids. And I thought, I'm not going to let that go. So I said, there's a difference between what I call quantity and quality. And he sort of looked at me perplexed. And I said, so you can be home with your children. And if your kids are in their rooms on their iPads or playing games or in the basement, then you're home. But that's quantity. I may be home maybe an hour. But if that 1 hour is my undivided attention, where they come to me with every problem and I'm helping them navigate through, that's quality. Because being at home in the same space, but everyone's in a different room, it
Yeah.
means absolutely nothing. And that
Yeah.
to me where the parenting comes in. Or if I'm the person that kids call when there's a problem, because mommy knows how to solve it and they know mommy's got their back and is going to do whatever is necessary, then I know I've done a good job. But the
Yeah.
other part of it too for me is they need some independence, but at the
Mhm.
same time, I want good human beings. I want them to be kind. I want them to be thoughtful. I want them to be, the kind of individuals I could be really proud of that want to go in and change the world. It isn't
Yeah.
necessarily about going out and making millions of dollars, although that would be fantastic. But
Yeah.
that's not what I want them to be happy. I want them to be thriving. I want them to be
Yeah.
doing work that they value and making a
Mhm.
contribution and being
Mhm.
kind.
Yeah.
And so when people come in with that sense of judgment or make these comments, especially for women, and I think, you sort of, you made the reference, but I think it's partly how we're socialized. We're socialized and we have always been the man is the breadwinner, and then we know that's changed and it's changing.
Mhm.
But this
Mhm.
idea of that double standard is what you're talking about, that when you're
Yes.
doing it, and I shared with you a story of being away and having somebody contact me and say, well, I can't believe you're away. I was away from my kids 3 days and I was just like dying. I miss them so much. I'm thinking, you don't think I miss my kids? But I had a really great job. I was doing a lot of good work.
Yes.
And my partner's a great dad, and he's doing making their lunches and making sure they get, and we talk every day and we can FaceTime. So I'm not really sure what the issue is and why somehow
Yeah.
you think I'm lesser than because of my gender. Because if I was a man, you'd be all like, hey,
Yeah.
way to go. Like, my God. If the
Absolutely.
tables were the reverse, they'd be saying, my God, so lucky to be married to that person because look at right?
Yeah.
So, I had to decide, and this is where I talk about self-reflection. I had to decide whose opinions matter and whose
Hmm.
opinions don't. I'm going to recycle that. I
Hmm.
had to decide what my value was and where my self-worth came from. And it did come from these other people that make noise, or
Yeah.
does it come from people that actually whose opinions matter to me? And when you
Yes.
filter through that crap, it's amazing how your North Star becomes even clearer and how
Yes.
much brighter you shine and how much harder you work to get there.
So I'm a healer, and as a healer, I see everything as energy. So I know that the things that stick in us, and like, sometimes somebody can say something to you, but you're so healed in that certain area, it just rolls right off of your aura and you don't even think about it. Like, that's not true. That's ridiculous. And I'm not going to explain to myself. But sometimes things are said to you that you feel guilt about. So when I was, just creating my own business and working during my maternity leave, because I knew that that's how I needed to start, and I was hearing whispers about me being a bad mother, it shattered my heart, my soul, my perspective, and it really paralyzed me for a bit because I'm like, what am I even doing? Am I doing the wrong thing? And I knew with all my heart, my soul, that this was meant for me to do at this time. And I was being called for a higher purpose, and this was my window of opportunity to like begin. I was like, what is in me that's causing me to just downward spiral like this? Because I know that this is my North Star. And I realized one day, and I was driving, to an appointment, and I was driving by a park. And in that park were like 10 moms with their little children, their babies, the same age as my baby. And I just subconsciously just stopped the car and I pulled aside and I looked there for a few moments. I'm like, this is it. I feel guilt about myself that I'm not one of those moms there either. And I really had to heal that perspective in me because I was just like, no, no, like I am a good mom. And just exactly to your point, maybe I'm not there every morning as I once was with my first two kids. I was in these play dates. I was a mom at Mother Goose library programs every single Wednesday, right? But if that wasn't my reality this time, it didn't deviate from the fact that I wasn't a good mother. I'm just now on a different journey. And the time that I did spend with my baby, it was full on attentional, just like you said. So I really had to heal that perspective within me. And now I've really had to like push that back. It's like energetically, if I hear this, I'm like, this is not my reality. I'm an amazing mother. And I am so sorry if you feel like this, but my children are living their best life and I am with them
And
as well.
whose place is it to be judging?
Yes.
And it's one
Yes.
thing if I'm talking about, what you see in the news, that, parents, and I'm not going to say mothers, I'm going to say both parents, where the
Right.
kids have been left alone for, and the police have to, I mean, we're talking that's not what I'm talking about. You know,
Exactly.
you're
Exactly.
judging what because you're following a career path, because you're doing
Yeah.
something that's really
Yeah.
great, and with all due
Exactly.
respect, it took two of you to create this child. So why
Yes.
are we giving somebody else a free pass on this? This should be equal. And
Exactly.
sometimes it's going to be 70% you and 30% him, and sometimes it's going to be the other way around. It doesn't
Exactly.
matter. But if you have a partnership,
Yeah.
then those things when they flex, then you work it out together. But
Yeah.
if you have that good foundation between the two of you, then a
Hmm.
happy parent will, you'll be just
Totally.
fine. And I have a partner. wonderful dad. And so, when you take them to swimming when we need to, and I have, siblings. So my little guy has two amazing older siblings that
Yeah.
fill in for mom and dad when we can't. And so
Yes.
it's how you build, and everybody's,
Exactly.
nucleus looks a little different, and that's okay. But if you're
Yeah.
following what you want to create a good, healthy
Yes.
life, then I think that's all right. But I'm not sure whose place it is to be judging. Like, I don't look at other people and
Exactly.
go, they should be doing this, they should be doing
And
that. Your life
yeah,
is
and
different than mine.
exactly. And I feel like, when somebody's out there going for it all, doing something in their world and to better themselves, to better the world around them, they will never judge you for doing anything less. It's only the people who aren't doing something that begin to judge, right? That that you feel this energy from. But somebody up here will never make you feel inadequate. It's only from this lower vibrational energy, right? So just
Well,
your point
so
too,
that
it
goes back to like what we talked about, when you are moving towards collaboration
mhm,
versus the competition piece. I
yeah,
think that's where we change the dynamic and the energy. So if you're talking about, well, how do we collaborate? How do I open a door for Steph? How do I support that person? Oh, she's always wanted to do X, Y, and Z. She's wanted to take her podcast to this direction. Okay,
yeah,
maybe I know someone who can help her do that. That's great,
yes,
right? That's great.
yes.
So that's the collaboration piece versus, you know, sort of being that negative and trying to pull somebody down. And
Hmm.
so as I said to you, I've kind of made this decision a while back, and I don't know whether it was getting to a certain age but you sort of decide, when we talked about that, I love that analogy that Tyler Perry uses about the rocket and the boosters. And so you have to kind of make that decision of, do I want, are these people the boosters? Where are they? Are they coming off at certain points as my life is going through the stratosphere? And do they stay with me right to the very end, or do they not? And that's okay, because not everyone's in your circle forever, and you're going to figure out who really should be. And there's some
Hmm.
people that come in and serve a purpose at that particular time in your life, and that's totally okay. And you're doing the same for them, by the way.
Hmm.
You're going to serve a purpose for certain people. And as long as you can acknowledge that and you remain true to who you are, you're okay. And for people to thrive, to people
Yeah.
to truly thrive, you have to have a good sense of who you are and what you want to do. And you have to have a good inner circle in
Hmm.
order to do that. Otherwise, you're
Hmm.
going to be pulled in different ways, as you say, and kind of said, going north, you're going to go this way. So
Hmm.
those are very important things. So who you have around you matters, and actually knowing who you are. So, we had talked earlier about my research. Well, the women that did really, really well knew who they were. When they walked into a room, it wasn't gender walking in, it was women who were very competent in what they did. They understood it. But also, what I found out from my research is who their partner was mattered, how they saw themselves mattered. And
Interesting.
so, if I always give advice to younger people, it's nice to date, but ask the really critical questions. Because if you're ambitious, you want to make sure that person's going to support your ambition. If you are going to have, children, you need to talk about what that looks like in terms of, do you have, similar values? And it's
Hmm.
interesting because, earlier you said to me, well, this person made a comment about, oh, we don't have the same values. Oh, if your values means that I'm doing the cooking and the cleaning and the raising and yeah, so then we don't have the same values. My value is about family unit and the whole family thriving, not
Yeah,
these divided lines that were historically created to say this is what the system should look like. Because I don't fit
absolutely.
into that system, and I'm quite happy not to.
Absolutely. And it's so true because sometimes, it's like a give and take in a really healthy dynamic, in a healthy relationship. Sometimes one person's leaning in more than the other, and we're like, don't
Yeah.
worry, I got you. Or like we pivot around. So sometimes if I'm working a lot, then I'm like, okay, honey, like just take the night off. Like I got the kids, go, watch a movie, like go live your best life. Like I got this. And like we just help each other. And it's just like really like playing out in the family, understanding our roles, understanding that we all want the same thing. We're all like in this together, and we're all learning and growing and setting a really healthy example for our children too, like what that looks like.
Yeah, I was just about to say that stuff. I think it's so important. I just want you to think about what you just described and what your children are seeing in terms of relationship dynamics,
Mhm.
both in terms of, so part of it is they're seeing it in the home space for themselves, you're modeling behavior. But also when they grow older and they go into the workplace, to recognize that men and women can have this equality where one person says one thing and the other person says something else. And then how do you find a happy medium to support each other? Because when you go into the workplace, there's still going to be that dynamic. I mean, as much as we talk about equity and the
Yeah.
numbers aren't all still there. And, I know we tend to focus on the C-suite and, oh, we've got the highest number of women in the C-suite these days at 10%. But, that's taken us 25 years to go from 2% to 10%.
Yeah.
So that's great. And we can focus on those top numbers, but what about that middle tier of women that are trying to figure it out and figure out if this is
Hmm.
something that they want, or if they want to open their own little business, follow kind of the passions that you're following. And we don't talk about that group and what we're doing to support them and the dynamic
Yeah.
that's there. And so I think how we raise our children, how we work with other
Yes.
people is really critical. And then again, I'd say, when we take a collaborative approach, we can do so much more together than kind of
100%.
doing the divide and conquer piece.
Excellent. And that might even sound like, hey, listen, I love the stuff that you're doing in this world. Like, what can I do to help and support you? And I say that to all the women in my life. And I'm really sincerely mean it, like if I see that there's a gap that I can fill or I can introduce or I can be a stepping stone for it, then that was my purpose at that moment for you. And it's with this intention for you to take that. And that's how we help each other. Because I know that one day if I ever need, like, you'll probably help me too. And like this is where we could just, there's that one saying that says, if you want to go far, go alone. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And that's where we help each other.
Yeah, so I'd add a caveat to that, which is, I am all about opening doors, as you know, Steph, and helping and making
Mm-hmm.
introductions or doing whatever I can. But my always one little caveat is that when that opportunity comes for you to do the same, you need to pay it forward for the next person.
Yes.
So I'm
Yes.
happy. I may not need you back because I probably can open more doors for you than you can for me because I'm at a different
Yeah.
stage in my life. But if I have one request, is that when you get a similar request like you gave me, you do the same for
Yeah.
the next person. And
Yes.
by paying it forward, we're really kind of creating this wonderful momentum and
Absolutely.
energy to change
Yes.
the dynamic, to make the world a better place, to be able to make a difference. Because if we don't do that, then, because I don't necessarily think I need something back. Maybe I will. I have no idea. I haven't had that, thank God, knock on wood.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm more than happy to do the work I do. But I want
Yes.
whoever I help to be able to do that back for somebody else.
Exactly. And that's just this energy of like, you know, as you rise up, being able to reach down below you and rise everybody up with you.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are not ready right now, and I learned that that's okay. Maybe they're not ready at this moment, but maybe they will be one day. And if they don't feel aligned to what I'm doing right now, maybe when they are ready, then I'll be that person to lift them back up and help them to get into alignment of whatever they need at that time.
I
So
think
I've really allowed people and accepted to allow people to be who they are, where they are at this place in life. And knowing that my heart's always open to assist everybody. And our journey to the top is at a different frequency, at a different pace. And there's no right or wrong, good or bad. But as we take these steps forward, it's really just looking out for each other and like you said, like paying it forward or just having that intention to do good.
yeah, I love that. And I think what's really interesting what you just said is the fact that most people probably have not spent a lot of time
Mhm.
thinking about what you just said, which is how do you kind of get that alignment? How do you get that purpose? How do you figure out? So sometimes, people do their jobs. They go in, they do work. They think, yeah, this is what I went to school for. I kind of like it. It's sort of okay, but it's not fulfill me. But they don't know what that missing piece is. And
Mhm.
sometimes I think they think that's just going to show up one day. And maybe it does. I don't know.
Yeah.
But if without the self-reflection piece
Mhm.
and just really doing some thinking about what is it that kind of lights me up, that makes me want to do these things, I don't think you're going to get to where you want to go. You might be living in okay, but like, you talk about the vibration and you might have that level of energy that you really like. But if you want to go to that next level, you need to know what it is and you have to be authentic about it. It's not just knowing, it's
Yes.
like, oh, I really think this is a good idea. I'm going to you have to be really authentic about it and live that truth every single day. And most of us, I think for a lot of people, it's they haven't really done that homework in their inner self to
Mhm.
find it, to identify it. This is where people work with someone like you to be able to help them get that alignment, to identify what it is to their purpose so that they can take it, whether it's, through a coaching or through the work that you do yourself around
Yeah.
healing. I think it's important. And so, if I was to give advice to people, I would say, I think you need to think a little bit about what that is that makes you really happy and shine. And
Yeah.
sometimes people are afraid to take that leap from the paycheck to what they
Mhm.
want. And
Mhm.
so, you and I talked about creating the runway for what you really want to do. So you maybe, if you work with someone and you identify, okay, this is really where I want to be. This is kind of where I am
Mhm.
now, and it's okay. And I'm all right with it. But it's, I
Mhm.
can sort of, what I'd really like in the next 3 to 4 years or 2 to 3 years or whatever that window is this is where I think I could really make a contribution and difference. This is what I really love doing. So how do I
Mhm.
get there? And so
Yeah.
for that, maybe they need, you know, a coach, maybe they need a healer, maybe they need all sorts of things. But figuring that out is going to be the transformative that turns the key. Because if they can't
Mhm.
see it, they need someone to help show it to them and get that way. And then think about, what does that path look like? How do I create that path for myself? And we're all so much happier when we actually own that space for ourselves, because
Mhm.
otherwise you're just plugging in, plugging out in.
Exactly.
And it's
And
not
that's
meant for
just,
everybody, by the way. It's not meant for everybody. Some people are okay to plug in and plug out, but I think if you really want to shine,
yeah. And that's an important part too, right? Our purposes are all different. Not everyone's meant to be the CEO of a company. Some
right?
people's purpose is to stay home and be a
Oh,
mother to take care of their
100%. Yeah.
children. But you'll know that you're in alignment to your true calling when you feel inner peace and you're energized by you being in the present moment and doing what lights you up. That's how you know that you're following your North Star, because if a mother was to apply for that CEO job, but she doesn't actually want it because she wants to be home, but she did it because that's what she thought society wanted her to do, she would feel frustrated. She would not want to be there. She'd feel resentful. She wouldn't put her 100%, right? And she would quickly downward spiral because she's not being authentic to who she is. Same with that CEO. If they're like, no, no, maybe my role should be a mother and I'm not going to go for it all, then that person would be resentful being at home. And it's not that they're a bad person, it's just that they're not in alignment to their higher calling. So I think if we can
I,
really step.
yeah, so I was
Mhm.
gonna say, I'm not sure, and again, it's so interesting to me that we talk about having it all, because we don't talk about that when it comes to men. Like, who defined, seriously, like, who defined what all
Yeah.
is and what it should look
Yeah.
like? And why is it, like we always say, women, we know one, we want to have it all. Have you ever heard that expression when it came to a man?
I know.
No.
Right?
Why?
Yeah.
Why? Why? So do we question
Yeah.
parenthood? Do we question fatherhood? No,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
they light up the barbecue and can throw a ball. Like, without that, not to diminish, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
have these things that we use related to women and gender, particularly
Mhm.
whether it's the motherhood piece, whether it's the showing up and being, a good wife and friend. I remember, did you go out see the movie Bad Moms?
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
I
so
can't remember,
so
but
much of
yes.
that resonated because you've got the person who's bringing in the stuff from the grocery store, and then the people who baked it all. So of course I used to bake
Yeah.
when I was with the kids when they were smaller, but as my career's taken off, I mean, I bake sometimes, but nowhere near what I used to do like 20 years ago. I just don't have the time.
Yeah.
So is it about that, or is it about the time that's spent? But there's different memories that we're creating. But going back to the CEO thing, the reality is, if you are a female and you're at that senior level, you probably also have different degrees of freedom in terms of what you can do with your children.
Hmm.
And so I don't want to equate that positioning and motherhood and the question that you can or cannot do it as well, because we definitely don't do that when you have these Fortune 500 CEOs that are male and think nobody ever questions their
Hmm.
dad, saying, well,
Hmm.
is he around? I mean, who questions
Yeah.
whether, Bill Gates or anybody else, Warren Buffett being a good parent?
Yeah,
We
it's so
don't. So
true.
I
It's so
want to
true.
take that out of the equation and say, if that's what you want to do and you're thriving, I'm going to
Yeah.
assume also that you have the means to be able to do way more things, to be
Yeah.
able to do to be there for your children. And no matter what that model looks like, because every family's model is going to look differently. What I do
Hmm.
think is important is as women, we believe we have the confidence to do the things that we want to do and build that in
Hmm.
ourselves,
Yeah.
decide for ourselves what's really important. Like, where do I really want to shine? What does that look like for me?
Yes. Yes. And
Believe in who
that's,
you are. Sorry, I was going to say, believe in who you are
yeah.
and the North Star that you talk about, because I think that's so important. But when you know that, all the
Hmm.
other noise,
Hmm.
the competition, the negativity,
Yes.
it's there, but it's gonna bounce off more like Teflon, than
Yeah.
actually like than the daggers that used to hurt when you were. And then I
Yeah.
think you have to be very selective with who your circle really is. I've talked
Hmm.
about personal advisory boards in the past, but even your inner circle of friends, what does that really look like? And then if you are rising and shining, you need to use that place of privilege to help other
Hmm.
people so that we really align with a collaboration piece to go to that next level. Because together, that
Yeah.
rocket, it may not be massive in size, but it is going
Yeah.
to take a number of people with us that are going to
Exactly.
have a massive impact on everybody else.
Yes. And if you're not surrounded by those people today, then my biggest piece of advice, just even experiencing it, is love people where they are, but then go find your new tribe of people who are in alignment of who you're going to be. That you are going to be surrounded by the energy of what you want to embody, who you're going to become. Join mastermind groups, have hire a coach, as you mentioned, like go to networking events around personal growth, around the place that you want to aspire to become. Because when you're surrounded by that energy, you will become it, and they're going to show you the pathway. And you'll also feel validated that my feelings are good. Because if nobody likes what you're doing, you might feel like you're doing something wrong, right? But then if you can find that group of people who is in alignment with where you're headed to, then you're like, yes, I feel like these are my soul people, and they're going to want to help you and they're going to show you the pathway. And then just to your point too, then you're going to feel so inspired and you're going to show other people the pathway, and we all just light up together, right? And those pathways, it doesn't really matter what it is, right? I use that example of the CEO or mother. It could be a person who wants to own their own business or to become a hair salon stylist, or a person who works at the Walmart grader. But if that's like what lights you up, you just do the best that you can in your ability, and you'll know that you're in alignment when you feel so happy and energized doing it. And you just become the best at it. And it's just going to grow from there?
Yeah. And part of it is what you talked about is the work, like your day
Mm.
job, if you will,
Yes.
but also
Yes.
the layers, right? It's the work. It's, what does that inner circle look like? What does that energy look like? Who's your community? Who's your tribe? And then what are you putting out in the world and what are you receiving back? And when you have all of those, it's easy to have positive energy when life is good, but it's actually work too. I'm just going to say, like, the one thing I think
Yeah.
people sometimes underestimate. I remember going to work years ago and people say, I'm so happy. Why are you so happy? I'm thinking, well, my level of gratitude comes from a lot of different things. And it was interesting that people would comment on, like, you always seem so happy. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure really what's wrong with that. But part of it was, I would wake up in the morning and I think, well, boy, I've got a roof over my head. I've got electricity
Yeah.
on. We've got food on the table. We've got water running. My parents are healthy and alive. My kids are good. All of these little things that may seem basic, but
Yeah.
that's more than some other people have in the world. So,
Yeah.
and I had a job I liked, it paid well. I mean, I have a good partner. I mean, what am I not happy about? I mean, if I can begin with that, everything else, the energy flows from there. But if you get up in the morning and all you're focusing on is, oh my God, it's raining outside, that sucks. Or, oh God, like I have a really crappy day. Or and don't think I don't. By the way, I have crappy days or meetings I don't want to go to. But I begin with, how do I set the intention every morning and the mindset to knock it out of the park, bring the best thing I can
Yeah.
out of it? How do I navigate that in a way that I think is going to get me to where I need to go? or get the company where we need to go and be more in the direct, like put some thinking around the strategy, that changes the outcome. Now, you're not going to have a fantastic day every day, but if it's a better day than it could have been, then that's still a
Yeah.
good thing. That's still a good thing. And so, one time I was, I jokingly said one time I was being interviewed and somebody said to me, your problem is you see the cup as half full. So there were always colored glasses. And I thought, oh, I don't know if that's actually true. And then I remember the more I thought about it, the more I thought, yeah. And so I actually weave that into into some of the work I do. And I said, I see the cup as all full. Half full is what most people see. That empty space is untapped opportunity where I like to play. And so,
Mhm.
one of the chapters in my book is my cup runneth over for a reason. And so if you're filled with gratitude and joy and energy and wanting to help and appreciation for all the things in life, then
Mhm.
you are going to be filled with gratitude. You're going to understand purpose. You're going to understand the focus.
Yeah.
You have the life that you were meant to live.
Amen to that. That's
Yeah.
absolutely, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much. This has been such an amazing conversation with you, Dr. Georgette, and I really love what you're doing and just continue to be this inspiring light for so many people around you. And if somebody did want to be in touch with you or want to learn more about your initiatives, your women's group, can you first of all share a little bit about what it is that you're doing and how they can be in touch with you?
Sure. So Women Helping Empower Women is a nonprofit. So everything we've done so far since we established it in 2020 has been free. Part of the reason for that is all of the sales, all the money from the book sales. So every time we sell a book, 100% of that money goes into supporting the nonprofit. And for me, it was very important that because we kind of play in a different space than other women's organizations, and that, we recognize that if you're the CEO, you don't need my help. Or if you're able to afford, several $100 tickets to an event, you don't need my help. I want to help the
Mhm.
women that are kind of in that middle space where they're trying to figure out what they want to do. And they want to be able to be with like-minded women, and or they need a door open, or they might need some coaching, they might need some support. So we do all of that. So we've done everything from training around confidence to speaking to, how to show up at an interview also. And then we have lots
Yes.
of networking events, but our networking events are a little different in that, like, we had one on women in innovation. So we had women who are, leading innovation coming and talking about how do you do that? How do you get into that space? What opportunities? It's okay. What opportunities are you tapping into? So that's some of it. So if you go to our website, www.woowomen, so WHEW women, all one word.com, that will take you to that, and you can sort of see and you can sign up with us. And once you sign up, you'll get access to events. The other thing that we've done differently, and it's evolved, because when we started, it was in the middle of COVID, so everything was online and all of this sort of stuff. Now
Yeah.
that nobody really wants to be online as much as they used to, we've pivoted to do more things in person, but also recognizing that we're a nonprofit with sort of, limited means, because we want to serve and not charge people a ton of money.
Mhm.
We're
Mhm.
working towards collaborations with some great organizations. More to come on that, but I'm very, very
Amazing.
excited about what's happening in the fall with some other organizations where we're going to be able to do the collaboration over competition. How we're working with organizations that have similar values. How do we
Wow.
amplify both, organizations' voices and take us to another level? So very, very excited about that. We've been doing some of that. We did some of
That's
that stuff with IG Wealth. We've done some stuff with RBC. More to come. More to
that's
come.
fantastic. Maybe when you have all of this together and you're ready to launch it, maybe I can have you back on and you can share
Oh, I'd
this.
love that. Yeah, I'd love that.
That
I'd
would
love
be
that. And
amazing
we'll have
because
to figure out how we get you involved.
oh my gosh, absolutely. I would love that as well. And
Yeah.
I think that that would be so great just to show people a pathway. Sometimes we stay in this paralyzation of fear because we just don't know. A confused mind always says no, right? So if you're presenting this opportunity to show people a pathway of opportunity, then their job is just to show up and be inspired and see where it leads them. So I love that you're doing this
Well,
for
I love it, as you know. And for
Mhm.
me, also the way I work with people, even when I'm coaching, I take a very practical approach, because I want people to not just, I won't sit with you for an hour and go, okay, so what do you think is holding you back? And wait for you to figure that out. I may
Yeah.
ask you some additional questions, but I may hear something that you're not hearing. I remember working with two amazing, amazing, amazing women. And I remember getting a call and coaching a session, and the person said, I'm feeling like a lot of chaos in my head. And I said, why? And she sort of walked through, she was trying to shift jobs, but the other person that they'd worked with for many years, there was, he came back and he was trying to be so nice and trying to offer them something else, but they had this other opportunity waiting. And then they had this, potential startup. And she's like, I don't know what to do. We're just so confused. And I remember saying to her, as I listened to her speak, I said, you have clarity. And she said, Dr. Georgette, how can I possibly have clarity? I said, you worked with this person for 9 years. Do you think, although they've kind of said sorry and they really appreciate and value all your work, do you think their behavior will change? No, I don't think so. I go, for 9 years they behaved this way. Do you think just after an apology, that's all we're going to say? Tomorrow it's going to be 180? She said, no. I said, right. So you got closure. I said, you've got this other opportunity. You can ask for everything you want. And then the other thing is going to be down the road, but you're going to make sure you keep a finger in that pot. And she said, well, I don't know we're going to get all those things that we are asking for. And I said, don't ask, don't get. And I remember her partner said, no, we shouldn't ask for all those things because we're not going to get them. And she said, Dr. Georgette said we should, so I think we should try. And then she called me, she said, we got everything we asked for, 30% increase in salary. Oh yeah, like all of these things. And she went, Dr. Georgette, you were so right. And I went, I know what you're worth. I know what you're worth. You didn't know what you were worth, but I knew what you were worth. So I'm not surprised by any of it. And you should see these women are thriving. And I'm so proud of them. But you have to have sometimes that person just to push you a little bit or show you what you can't see within yourself.
Absolutely.
And that's, I think, the space I like to play in. So when we created Woo, it was really to say to people, I see something you don't see. This is why the book is called Not Why Not You, because every time someone tells me why they can't, I'm going to tell you why I think you can, because I see something in you that you may not see in yourself.
Yes, that's so true. And I think that that's going to help so much with the imposter syndrome we all feel at some point getting to that next level, right? I really love that. That's amazing. So what we can do is perhaps link your nonprofit, maybe your personal information if somebody's interested in coaching. Let's put everything here. And but what would the best way for somebody to reach out to you be?
Yeah, either through LinkedIn or you can email me directly. It's just Dr. Georgette Zinaty. So Dr, first name, last name, no period. drgeorgettezinaty @gmail.com.
Perfect. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been such a pleasure having you, and I cannot wait to have you on again and talk about your nonprofit and where you're leading and taking it to.
Steph, thank you so much for having me today, and thanks for all the work that you're doing and for all the light you're bringing to the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. If you are ready to heal your deepest wounds and manifest your greatest life, I welcome you to explore the blueprint to your $1 million life, the divinely channeled program that is creating miracles for people all over the world. Visit www.stephmahony.com.